One of the biggest mistakes people make when dealing with toxic individuals is allowing their emotions to take over. Toxic people are often experts at pushing buttons. They use guilt, passive aggressiveness, criticism, or even charm as tools to get a rise out of you. The moment you react emotionally, they gain control of the situation. Why? Because they thrive on drama and instability. They feed off your frustration, confusion, or anger. It gives them power, attention, and validation. That's why the first clever way to deal with toxic people is to recognize the trap of emotional manipulation and consciously choose to stay centered. Instead of reacting out of impulse, pause, take a breath, observe their behavior like a chess master reading an opponent's move. Understand this is not about you. It's about their need for control, attention, or superiority. Responding with strategy means you think before you speak. You choose language that is calm, firm, and neutral. You avoid sarcasm, shouting, or defensiveness because those only escalate things. For example, if someone throws a snide remark your way, don't bite the bait. You might simply reply, "I see how you feel," or "Let's revisit this when we're both calm." These types of responses throw them off balance. They expect emotional chaos. You give them emotional clarity. By remaining emotionally detached in the moment, you preserve your energy and deny them the satisfaction they seek. This doesn't mean you suppress your emotions entirely. It means you delay your emotional processing until you're in a safe space to reflect and release. Responding with strategy also means knowing what you want from the interaction and directing it there, not getting sidetracked by their chaos. Staying emotionally composed is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not avoidance, it's intelligence. Because in the game of dealing with toxic people, the one who controls their emotions wins the power back. Toxic people don't just cross boundaries, they bulldoze through them if you let them. They test limits, ignore cues, and make you feel guilty for standing your ground. That's why it's absolutely essential to not just have boundaries, but to enforce them with confidence and consistency. Setting boundaries isn't about being cold or rude. It's about being clear about what behavior you will and will not accept in your space, in your energy, and in your life. It's self-respect in action. A toxic person will rarely honor unspoken rules or vague discomfort. They don't get the hint. So you need to communicate your boundaries directly. For example, instead of saying, "I don't like it when you talk to me like that," say, "If you continue to speak to me that way, I will walk away from this conversation." That's direct. That's powerful. Boundaries can be physical, emotional, conversational, or even digital. Maybe you don't answer texts after a certain hour. Maybe you refuse to engage in gossip or arguments. Maybe you decide that you won't be available every time they create a crisis and expect you to drop everything. You are not a 24/7 emotional service center. You have the right to protect your mental bandwidth. But setting boundaries is only the first half. The second and harder part is defending them without apology. Toxic people will try to make you feel selfish, dramatic, or cruel for setting limits. They'll play the victim. They'll guilt trip you. This is a test, and you must stay firm without over-explaining. You don't need to convince them that your boundary is fair. You don't need their approval. You just need to enforce it. And sometimes the most powerful boundary you can set is distance, not out of hate, but out of self-preservation. It's okay to love someone from afar. It's okay to reduce access. You're not obligated to offer your presence to people who only bring you pain, stress, or instability. Boundaries are not about control, they're about self-protection. They are the invisible fences that protect your peace, your purpose, and your personal power. The clearer and stronger they are, the less room toxic people have to manipulate or dominate you. One of the most clever and underrated techniques to deal with toxic people is the gray rock method, a simple but powerful psychological tactic that can disarm manipulators without confrontation. The core idea is this: make yourself as emotionally uninteresting and unreactive as a gray rock. Not dramatic, not colorful, not exciting. Just dull, steady, and uneventful. Toxic people thrive on attention, emotional reactions, and chaos. They love when you get angry, defensive, upset, or overly engaged, because that tells them they've gotten under your skin. It feeds their ego and validates their tactics. But when you respond to them like a gray rock, flat, emotionless, uninterested, they don't get the emotional payoff they crave. Using the gray rock method means you don't share personal information, you don't show visible reactions, and you don't engage in debates or drama. If they insult you, you don't defend or explain. If they fish for gossip, you change the subject or give one-word answers. You become predictably boring to interact with. And because toxic people are usually fueled by conflict, attention, or control, they often move on to a new target when you no longer give them what they want. This tactic is especially useful when you're forced to maintain some level of contact, like with a co-worker, a family member, or someone in your daily environment. You don't have to cut them off entirely, but you also don't have to be emotionally available. By lowering the temperature of the interaction and refusing to engage in emotional games, you starve the toxicity without directly confronting it. But here's the nuance: the gray rock method is not about being passive or suppressing your emotions long term. It's a temporary strategy used in environments where confronting or distancing yourself isn't immediately possible. It protects your energy in the short term while you work on longer-term boundaries or transitions. Using this method requires practice and emotional discipline. At first, it may feel unnatural or even robotic, but that's the point. You're removing yourself from their emotional script. You're refusing to play the role they've written for you in their manipulative play. You're quietly reclaiming your control without giving them any ammunition to use against you. And remember, this method works best when combined with internal detachment. Even if you're outwardly calm, you must also emotionally unplug from their need for validation, reaction, or control. Toxic people often sense when you're still emotionally involved, even if you're silent. So the true power of the gray rock method lies not just in your behavior, but in your mindset: neutral, unshaken, and unavailable for drama. Toxic people can be exhausting, not just because of what they say or do, but because of how much emotional energy they demand from you. They constantly pull you into their storm, their drama, their negativity, their manipulation, their chaos. And if you're not careful, you start living in reaction mode, always trying to fix, defend, explain, or pacify. This is why learning to emotionally detach is one of the most powerful forms of protection you can give yourself. Emotional distance doesn't necessarily mean cutting someone off completely. It means taking back control over your inner world, even if you're in the same room. It means separating who they are from how you choose to feel. You can still speak to someone. You can still coexist in a space, but you no longer allow their energy to affect your peace, identity, or emotional balance. One of the biggest signs of emotional entanglement with a toxic person is when your mood is constantly shifting based on their behavior. If they're kind today, you feel relieved. If they're cold tomorrow, you're anxious. If they give you attention, you feel validated. If they ignore you, you feel invisible. This emotional roller coaster is not a coincidence. It's a cycle of dependency toxic people often create to keep you off balance. Emotional distance breaks that cycle. The first step is awareness. Notice how you feel after interacting with them. Are you drained? Angry? Doubting yourself? That's emotional leakage. Your energy is being pulled into their field. The next step is mental reframing. Remind yourself, their behavior is not about me. It's a reflection of their own wounds, patterns, and insecurities. This reminder helps you detach your self-worth from their words or actions. Another crucial tactic is creating mental boundaries. You can listen without absorbing. You can observe without reacting. you can care without carrying. This shift in mindset is what creates true emotional freedom. Sometimes that means practicing the art of emotional minimalism, giving less of your inner self away in conversations, avoiding personal disclosures, and not reacting to bait designed to provoke you. Emotional distance also requires that you stop trying to change or fix the toxic person. That effort keeps you tied to them in a cycle of hope and disappointment. The truth is, people don't change unless they want to, and toxic individuals often have no intention of changing because they benefit from staying the way they are. Once you stop trying to rescue or reform them, you reclaim that energy for yourself. And this doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself enough to stop sacrificing your emotional well-being in the name of connection, loyalty, or obligation. Emotional distance is a form of self-respect. It creates space for clarity, healing, and inner peace in the middle of external dysfunction. Toxic people have a unique talent for making you feel like you owe them an explanation for everything. They twist your words, question your motives, challenge your decisions, and dig for weaknesses in your reasoning, not because they want to understand you, but because they want to control the narrative. They don't ask why to seek clarity. They ask it to trap you. The more you explain yourself, the more material they have to manipulate, guilt, or gaslight you. This is why one of the most powerful tools you can develop when dealing with toxic people is the ability to say what you mean and stop there. Over-explaining is often rooted in fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of conflict, fear of rejection. But when you constantly justify yourself, you unknowingly signal to the other person that your boundaries are negotiable, that your decisions are up for debate, and that they have the right to approve or disapprove of your actions. Toxic individuals feed on this insecurity. They'll interrupt you mid-explanation, redirect the conversation, or find the one sentence they can twist and use against you. What starts as a simple statement can easily turn into an interrogation you never agreed to participate in. This is why brevity is strength. The less you say, the fewer opportunities they have to hijack your words. You don't need to explain why you're busy, why you didn't text back, why you chose to say no, or why you need space. A simple, "I'm not available right now," or "that doesn't work for me," is enough. When you stop over-explaining, you stop giving them entry points into your mind and emotions. Another subtle but effective strategy is answering with clarity, not justification. There's a difference between giving information and defending yourself. For example, instead of saying, "I didn't come to the event because I was tired and I had a long day and I had to help someone and I wasn't feeling well," you can simply say, "I wasn't able to make it." That's it. It's respectful, it's honest, and it closes the door to unnecessary follow-ups. Keep in mind that not explaining doesn't make you rude or cold. It makes you self-assured. It shows that you are confident in your decisions, that you don't need external validation, and that you understand your own worth. Toxic people often rely on your need to be liked or understood to keep you entangled in their games. But once you stop playing defense, once you step back and own your choices without apology, their power begins to dissolve. It also helps to remind yourself not everyone deserves access to your reasoning, your time, your energy, your decisions. Those are yours. You don't owe anyone a 5-paragraph essay just to maintain your boundaries or protect your peace. When you cut off the endless loop of explanations, you begin to create space for clarity, strength, and self-respect in conversations that once felt chaotic and draining. When dealing with a toxic person, particularly in professional settings, it's not enough to just manage your emotions and responses. You also need to protect yourself with evidence. Why? Because toxic individuals often operate in subtle, manipulative ways. They twist facts, deny things they've said, accuse you of things you didn't do, and weaponize your words against you. Over time, They create a distorted version of reality that puts you on the defensive. The best way to stay ahead of this manipulation is to keep records, detailed, objective, and time-stamped records. Documentation is your safety net. It doesn't have to be complex or dramatic. It can be as simple as writing a summary of a conversation immediately after it happens, saving email threads, taking screenshots of inappropriate messages, or even keeping a private log of incidents with dates, times, and key details. What you're doing is creating a factual trail that protects your integrity when someone tries to gaslight or falsely accuse you. In work environments, this becomes especially crucial. Toxic coworkers or managers may try to sabotage your reputation, undermine your performance, or blame you for their own mistakes. In meetings, they may agree with you face to face, only to deny it later. If you don't have a paper trail, it becomes your word against theirs, and that's a game they are usually better at playing. With documentation, you shift the balance. You can say, A's per our conversation on July 3rd, or according to the email sent at 2:47 p.m. via, and suddenly the manipulation has nowhere to hide. But this isn't just about defending yourself, it's also about maintaining clarity and confidence. Toxic people thrive on confusion. They want you to question your memory, your feelings, even your sanity. When you have a record, you take the guesswork out of the equation. You no longer have to wonder, did I overreact? Did I say that? Am I imagining this? You have a written account that validates your reality. And it's not just limited to work. If you're dealing with a toxic family member, ex-partner, or friend, documentation can still be your ally, especially if things have the potential to escalate legally or emotionally. Text messages, call logs, social media exchanges, these are all forms of proof that can support you if things turn serious. Toxic people often count on the fact that you won't keep track. When you do, you change the entire dynamic. It's also important to keep your documentation private and secure. Don't threaten them with it. Don't broadcast that you're keeping tabs. Let your actions be quiet, methodical, and protective. The goal isn't revenge, it's self-preservation. Having evidence gives you peace of mind. It empowers you to speak up when necessary and stand your ground when you're being misrepresented. Lastly, don't underestimate the emotional clarity documentation provides. When you're in a long-term toxic dynamic, things can start to feel blurry. The gaslighting, the cycles of blame and denial, it wears you down. Reviewing what actually happened in your own words and records becomes a grounding exercise. It reminds you of what's real, what patterns have occurred, and what you no longer have to tolerate. Toxic people have a way of consuming your mental space, your emotional bandwidth, and even your identity. They pull you into their storms, make their dysfunction your responsibility, and condition you to prioritize their moods, needs, and opinions over your own peace. Over time, your world starts to revolve around avoiding their outbursts, fixing their messes, or trying to earn their approval. This is not living, it's emotional survival. And that's exactly where they want you to stay small, distracted, dependent, and stuck. The most powerful shift you can make is to redirect your focus from their chaos to your growth. Instead of trying to manage or decode them, start investing that same energy into rebuilding you, your confidence, your purpose, your boundaries, your healing, and your passions. Growth is the antidote to the damage toxic people try to inflict. When you grow, you outgrow their grip. Focusing on your growth doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine. It means accepting the reality of who they are and choosing to shift the narrative from how do I fix them to how do I evolve beyond this. It's a transition from being reactive to being intentional. Toxic people thrive when you stay stuck analyzing their behavior. They lose influence the moment you stop participating and start building. That could mean spending your time learning new skills, practicing self-care, deepening your emotional intelligence, going to therapy, journaling your experiences, or surrounding yourself with people who uplift and inspire you. It could mean setting meaningful goals and taking steps every day, no matter how small, toward a life where you are the main character again, not them. Every hour you spend growing is an hour you've taken back from their chaos. And as you grow, something powerful happens. Your tolerance for dysfunction shrinks. What once felt normal starts to feel unbearable. The manipulation becomes more obvious. The emotional games lose their impact. You begin to develop internal strength that doesn't require their validation or fear their rejection. That's because growth rewires your mind. It helps you see clearly, choose wisely, and act from a place of self-worth, not survival. In many cases, focusing on your growth will automatically create distance. Toxic people don't like to see you improving. They prefer you insecure and unsure because that's easier to control. As you evolve, they may lash out more, criticize your progress, or try to sabotage your momentum. Don't let that discourage you. It's a sign you're breaking the pattern. Stay focused. Their noise is a distraction. Your path is the priority. Focusing on your growth also shifts your energy from reactive to proactive. Instead of being constantly exhausted by emotional firefighting, you're building a life that reflects your values, desires, and truth. You become less interested in being understood by them and more invested in understanding yourself. You stop chasing closure and start creating your future. Growth isn't just healing, it's reclaiming your direction, your voice, and your identity.